Jacobe Tharp didn't just break the world record in the 110-meter hurdles, he did it in a semi-final, not even the final, just a qualifying round. And somehow, after crossing the line, he honestly believed he had run a disappointing race. During a live interview on ESPN, his reaction caught everyone completely off guard. He casually said, "My last 3 hurdles were kinda trash." In his mind, he figured the clock probably showed something like 12:09.7 or 12:09.8, maybe a collegiate record, he thought. Cool, but the real work was still waiting tomorrow. Then he looked up at the scoreboard, and what happened next sent shockwaves through the entire stadium. But before we get to that unbelievable moment, you need to know where this journey actually began. Because the world record is only the headline. The real story runs much deeper. It starts in a middle school gym in Tennessee with a kid who had just been cut from basketball and had absolutely no idea what came next. Murfreesboro, Tennessee is the kind of town where sports are practically a way of life. Football on Friday nights and basketball all winter long. Everyone grows up with a sport, and almost everyone thinks they have a plan. For Jacobe Tharp, that plan was basketball from the moment he could walk. And honestly, it made perfect sense. His mother, Amanda, played college basketball at Tennessee Martin. His father, Jimmy, also had a background in the game at the high school level. Basketball wasn't just a sport in the Tharp household. It was part of the family language. The NBA wasn't just a dream. It was the highest mountain young Jacobe hoped to climb. Then came 7th grade, and everything changed in an instant. He tried out for the school basketball team. He got cut. Not because of injury, not because he was too young, just cut. Not good enough, find something else to do. Imagine hearing that at 12 years old, when basketball is your entire identity. When your family breathes the sport and a coach simply tells you no. That kind of moment changes people. Needing somewhere to put his energy, Tharp found himself facing an unexpected opportunity. His middle school track coach suggested he give hurdles a try. The funny part? He wanted absolutely nothing to do with it. And his reason might be the most relatable thing you'll ever hear from a future world record holder. He wasn't afraid of losing. He wasn't afraid of competition. He was terrified of tripping over a hurdle and falling flat on his face in front of everyone. The coach kept it simple. Just give it a shot. 1 year later, Jacobe Tharp became Tennessee's middle school hurdle state champion. Think about that for a second. 1 year from beginner to champion. The kid who feared falling over hurdles had become the best middle school hurdler in the state. But this is where the story takes another turn, because just when the road ahead started looking clear, everything suddenly stopped. Then came 2020, the pandemic. Tharp entered 9th grade carrying real momentum. A state title, improving times, and a future that was finally starting to look real. Then his entire season disappeared. Not shortened, canceled. No races, no competition, no times. An entire year of development vanished before his high school career truly began. For many athletes, that kind of interruption changes everything. You lose rhythm, you lose confidence, and when you return, it feels like everyone else kept moving while you stood still. Instead of giving up, Tharp returned to basketball. He made the team as a sophomore, still dividing his focus and not fully committed to track. When he eventually returned to hurdles, it felt like starting all over again, but even bigger challenges were waiting ahead. High school hurdles stand at 39 inches. College hurdles rise to 42. 3 inches may sound small, but at full speed, those inches change everything. Your stride changes, your timing changes, your entire technique has to be rebuilt. Most coaches look at a 6'4" athlete and worry that taller hurdles will create problems. Longer legs, longer strides, tougher clearance. But one coach saw something completely different. Ken Harnden, Auburn assistant coach, former Olympian, and Zimbabwe's national record holder in the 400-meter hurdles, saw potential where others saw obstacles. This was a coach who had spent years turning raw talent into world-class performance. As Tharp weighed his college options, several schools entered the conversation. But there was something about Harnden that made the decision surprisingly easy. And later, Tharp explained exactly why. Out of every program that was recruiting me, that single reason is exactly why I chose to come here. I already knew Coach Ken was the one who had pushed me to the level I needed. But what really defines this relationship is what happens the moment Tharp officially signs. His mother, Amanda, sits down with Harnden and gives him full permission to do whatever it takes. Do whatever you need to do to take my son to the next level, academically and as a human being. That is a mother placing complete trust in a coach with her child. This is not some recruiting sales pitch. This is a life decision being made. And Harnden doesn't take it lightly. There is another detail about Tharp's recruitment to Auburn that reveals everything about the athlete he was before track ever shaped him. His high school basketball highlights were actually part of the recruiting film Harnden reviewed. Clips of Tharp launching from the free throw line and throwing down dunks. That 6'4" frame exploding off 1 foot and finishing above the rim. Harnden watches those moments and immediately sees something basketball coaches never fully understood. Those legs were made for hurdling. That body was built to fly. 2024 World Under-20 Championships in Lima, Peru. Jacobe Tharp is just 18 years old. He steps onto the global stage for the first time and walks away a gold medalist at the World U20 level. In the process, he also shatters a Tennessee high school record that had stood untouched for 42 years. Back at Auburn, he became the first freshman since 2011 to win an SEC outdoor title in any event. At this point, the entire hurdling world is officially paying attention. 2025 brings the NCAA indoor title, NCAA outdoor title, U.S. Championships title, and suddenly he is the best collegiate hurdler in America, heading into Tokyo in September for the World Athletics Championships, his first senior world final. He finishes sixth in the world at just 19 years old in his very first senior world championship. But here is what makes sixth so important. Sixth is not a medal position. Sixth, do not rewrite record books. Sixth simply says you belong in the room, but not that you run it. Grant Holloway is the one running that room. Olympic champion, multiple world titles, and a blistering 12.81 at the 2021 Olympic trials, the closest anyone has ever come to Aries Merritt's 12.80 world record that has stood untouched since 2012. 14 years. 14 long years that record survived everything. Holloway couldn't break it. Devin Allen ran 12.84 in 2022 and still couldn't touch it. The very best in the world kept knocking on the door and walking away short. The night before June 10, 2026, Jacobe Tharp is alone in his room studying race footage. Merritt's legendary 12.80 from Brussels, Holloway's 12.98 at NCAA's, his 12.81 personal best. He keeps replaying them, not to intimidate himself, but to convince his mind that he belongs in that world. All right, he thinks before sleep, I can run that. He has no idea what is coming next. His personal best heading into the NCAA championships sits at 13.01. 1.01 seconds. Now here's what that gap between 13.01 and 12.80 really means in hurdles, because it changes everything. You are not simply running faster, you are clearing 10 barriers at maximum speed with perfect rhythm. Stride pattern, timing, and explosive control all aligning for under 13 seconds. Every hundredth of a second has to be earned somewhere in the race, whether it is technique, reaction, drive phase, or clearance efficiency. You do not just choose to get faster over hurdles. The body has to execute movements it has never produced before, at speeds it has never reached. That gap between 13.01 and 12.80 is not just 0.2 of a second, it is an entirely different race. Nobody watching Tharp warm up on June 10th in Eugene thinks a world record is even in the conversation. Not the press box, not the stands, not the rival coaching staff. Honestly, not even Tharp himself. His entire focus is locked on one thing: execution. His coach, Ken Harden, gives him just a single word before the semifinal: execute. No hype, no target time, no mention of history. Just execute. Tharp steps onto the track and into the blocks. The gun goes off. And before what happens next unfolds, think about Grant Holloway for a second. Holloway has carried this event for years. Olympic gold, world titles, records, the face of the 110-meter hurdles for nearly half a decade. He has openly talked about pushing the limits of what the human body can do over barriers. And if he were standing at Hayward Field that day, watching this unfold, you already know what he would say. This is exactly the moment he has been describing, the evolution of the event itself.
arriving through a 20-year-old from Tennessee who once chose basketball, feared falling over hurdles, lost a year to a pandemic, and still showed up on the biggest stage in college track history to do something nobody had ever done. That is the kind of moment Holloway has been talking about for years, and now Tharp is the one delivering it. Drop it in the comments right now. Before the biggest race of your life, do you watch the greatest performances ever for motivation, or does it actually make the pressure worse? Because June 10th, 2026, Hayward Field in Eugene, Oregon is about to answer that question in real time. It's the second semifinal of the men's 110-meter hurdles at the NCAA Outdoor Championships. Tharp explodes out of the blocks. Halfway through the race, a thought flashes through his mind. These hurdles are coming fast, maybe too fast. His rhythm feels slightly off. The final barriers feel messy, but he drives through anyway and hits the line. In his head, it's simple. That's probably a 12:97, maybe 12:98. Collegiate record, sure, but nothing crazy. Save the real performance for Friday. He looks up at the scoreboard at the south end of Hayward Field and sees 12.76. Then it updates again, 12.75 seconds. The entire stadium goes silent, completely frozen. One journalist later says he has never experienced anything like it in 5 years of championships. Silence first, then pure chaos erupting seconds later. To understand why this matters, you have to put 12.75 into perspective. Aries Merritt set the world record at 12.80 back in 2012 in Brussels. For 14 years, the greatest hurdlers on the planet chased it and failed. Holloway ran 12.81 and couldn't touch it. Allen ran 12.84 and still fell short. And now Tharp hasn't just broken it, he has erased the entire threshold, becoming the first human in history to run the 110-meter hurdles in the 12.7s. He also smashes Holloway's collegiate record of 12.98 by 23 hundredths of a second. 2 records gone in one race in a semifinal, with no one pushing him in a perfect race environment. On the ESPN broadcast, Tharp can only say what everyone else is thinking out loud. I swear I didn't mean to. Then again, 12.75. I have more in my legs, I'm speechless. And even after everything, he still insists it wasn't planned. It wasn't on his bingo chart. And that might be the most terrifying part. The kid who once got cut from 7th grade basketball, who was afraid of tripping over hurdles, who lost an entire season to a pandemic, just ran the fastest hurdles race in human history and calls it accidental. And the story isn't even finished. There's still a final on Friday. He hasn't peaked. He hasn't reached his prime. He is only 20 years old, running imperfect races and still rewriting history. LA 2028 is just 2 years away, at home on American soil. He will be 22, entering an Olympic final with a world record already behind him and even more time to improve ahead of him. Because if a bad race produced 12.75, then the question nobody can answer yet is simple. What does perfection even look like?